that I attended on June 20th, 2018 was very insightful and eye-opening for me because I didn't even know that trustees were such an integral part of the school board system, and only after attending the board meeting was I able to learn more about what they are and who they represent. So a trustee's role essentially is to maintain a focus on student achievement and well-being, and to participate in making decisions that benefit the entire board district while also representing the interests of his or her constituents. So trustees also communicate the views and decisions of the board back to the constituents, in this case it'd be the community. So they're sort of the middle person that go back and forth between what works, what doesn't work for the community, and also at the same time upholding the board's decision. So under the Education Act, the trustees' power sort of lies in membership on the corporate school board. So the corporate board of trustees is legally accountable to the public and to the Minister of Education for the collective decisions of the board and for the delivery of the quality of educational services. So this means once the board of trustees has voted, it's the trustees' responsibility to act in a manner that sort of promotes that initial decision. So school board trustees are the members of the school district school board, of course, because they play an integral part by going back and forth and upholding and promoting the different acts or legislations. And they're locally elected and are representatives of the public. They are sort of advocates for us or the community, and they're required to carry out the responsibilities in a manner that assists the board in fulfilling its duties under the Education Act. Now, trustees are also required to uphold the implementation of any board resolution after it's passed by the board, and this sort of entails what they have to do and a big part of what they do. What they do. So when I went into the board meeting, I realized that it was very structured in terms of the agenda. So initially they had the thanks, they had O Canada, a school came in and they sung O Canada. Then the Madam Chair recognized the rights and histories and extraordinary achievements of people in Canada. Then they had the elder acknowledgement of traditional and ancestral lands, and he spoke for a little while. Then the trustees, Madam Chair, teachers, and representatives, and the staff, they spoke on different acts and issues that were that had come up in the recent past. So what happens is the Madam Chair will say an agenda item, and then there will be somebody to second that agenda item, and she would have to note down who it is. So just for record's sake, they have that. In order to become a trustee, you have to be, there's certain requirements that you have to meet. So the requirements are you have to be a resident within the jurisdiction of the board, you have to be a supporter of that specific school board, you have to be a Canadian citizen, you have to be at least 18 years old, you have to be a Roman Catholic if you're running for a separate school board, and you are not legally prohibited from voting and not disqualified by any legislation from holding school board office. So if a candidate is nominated, then they must remain qualified through the election, and then if they're elected, they have to stay in office for the 4 terms. So the school board candidates should confirm that they have the qualifications described in order if you want to become a trustee, and this falls under the Education Act, specifically Section 219. So one part of the board meeting that stuck out to me was them discussing the Planning Priorities Committee, and there were trustees that spoke for, and that there were trustees that spoke against it. So specifically, it was item number 16.21, which was on page 5 of the agenda. And there was a speakers list that the Madam Chair would go through for each trustee to be able to speak. So the first trustee that spoke, she was one of the ones that supported the Planning and Priorities Committee becoming a committee of the entire board, because she thought that as trustees, they already have obligations on Wednesday night because it is a committee night, and it's upon them to attend these at least once a week. And trustees are busy as it is, and they may have other obligations. Another point she brought up was, as a whole board, they're representatives of the community. And this is a great point because many times trustees may not be aware of what goes on in the community. And it deals with the development and coordination of a strategic plan, which again is critical work for all trustees because it deals with governmental relationships. And one of the last points she discussed was that if you're not a member of the committee, and if you haven't been involved in your community, and you hear issues, you can't vote for it. So a trustee can't go and vote for it to support or not support it if you are not a member of that committee. And it's something important for them to be cognizant of because they need to have inclusivity in order for the conversations to be more engaging and alive. On the flip side, however, there was another trustee that was concerned about the structure of PNP, and he said that he was able to participate fully. He regularly attends meetings, but then, you know, he has motions passed on his behalf. And although there is a quorum, although there's 22 members on a quorum, you need to have 12 members agree with it in order for it to be a quorum. And he was concerned that many of these items won't go before the PNP, and then, you know, you have the same discussion happening again and again, and he doesn't support the motion. Now, on the flip side, the trustee that spoke after him said that, you know, it doesn't matter if we're discussing the issue again and again, because if it's important, then we have to discuss it again. And this trustee was Trustee Brown, and he is the chair of the Governance and Policy Agency. And he said that there's two that are legislated out of the Education Act, SEAC and PEAC. And one of the issues that SEAC has brought forward is that they want to have the right to come to the entire board meeting. So he said that if we have the committee of the whole, or the whole committee, then we can shift the rapports and we give them the opportunity to sort of understand what's going on in the community and be involved to have a voice in that meeting itself. So SEAC and PEAC, again, in terms of legislation, they can speak to the entire board because they're entitled to do so under the legislation. This was interesting because I had no idea that they could just, you know, go in and say, like, and do such a thing. And then the last trustee that spoke in favor of this, of the planning and priorities meeting, and she said that, you know, these decisions are big and oftentimes they're difficult to accept, which is a reality of the different types of, you know, communities that are coming up in our society today. So in order to do this, we need to have some sort of voice and representation of the community that can bring it to the meeting, which can then be voiced by the trustee and have the necessary actions take place. So overall, it was very insightful because I didn't know that there was such a long chain of, or such a long channel through which it goes through, and trustees were such a big part of it. So they raised, you know, all in all, they raised the matter in a formal way. And for example, you know, Rule 63, if a member of this board was able to receive a gift or attending an event, for attending an event, lodging or hospitality is not a gift under the code. So little things like this are discussed at these meetings, which I had no idea about. So it came down to me understanding where they're coming from and what they do for us. Overall, it was very insightful, and I do believe I would go back to learn more.